So I was reading this article about billion-dollar PhDs, and it's actually quite surprising how many people that are billionaires. I would imagine that if you took a swipe of the billionaires, billionaires or ultra wealthy folks in the new economy, you would find a significant portion of them have advanced degrees, whether it is a terminal degree like a PhD, but a law degree, physician, those kind of things, and that there's actually a pretty strong correlation, I think, between um, doing doing those particular degrees. Now, why is that the case? It's really hard, right? Like, there is people that spend a great deal of time and effort teasing this apart. And I'm certainly not going to say, that then I know what it all means. But there's a couple of things, right? The first thing is that the degree, it's a signal. So it actually means something in the marketplace. You do learn a second thing, you do learn a lot of stuff. And you understand the world and sort of have clarity on the world. But I think there's two other things that I think are probably perhaps more important, particularly of the class of the billionaires. If you start looking at them, they all invented something. They all innovated. They all did something that, that didn't exist before, and they worked at it, and they continuously worked at it. So the one thing that you realize when you go do an advanced degree, particularly a PhD, is that people are just not going to be nice to you, right? Like, they're not going to hand you the thing. You got to get up, you got to work at it every single day. And it's this grinding effort where you just continuously work at it and figuring out how to make it enjoyable, exciting for you. That's ultimately a big challenge. Some people just enjoy reading and things like that. I might not necessarily be in that camp where I just enjoy things, but I certainly enjoy making and thinking about the world and doing things, like actually doing things, right? I look at myself, and I think, many the other folks that do this for a long time, you realize that they just like to do things. Like, they're relatively active all the time, doing various different aspects. And I think, a combination of, so that's one thing, like, you actually like to do things. But the other thing is standing up to a world that is going to tell you that what you're doing is wrong, repeatedly, and knowing how to process that, right? That sort of constant rejection, that depths of the despair, where nobody is paying attention. You're not going to get anywhere. And so it's balancing that of, like, how much of that world do I absorb? Most of the feedback that you're going to get is negative, so you don't want to absorb a heck of a lot. But then what elements or what key things do you want to absorb? So, the feedback that I like is from people that see the world, right? Like, they see where the potential can be. So most people, I kind of discount it, right? Because they don't see the world. And if I can't possibly, benefit in some sort of way, then you have to just ignore it because it eats you up, right? The negativity, the sort of, in your mind, the way I naturally think is, and it's taken a lot of time and effort. My natural default is very negative. But I think that's pretty normal for most people. And so it's taken me a lot of time and effort to train myself to be more positive, to think about the world, and just be like, you know what, screw it. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna do something here and make it happen. And yeah, the world's not gonna like it, but I'm gonna make it happen anyways, right? I'm going to make this change, and like it or not, you could sit there enjoying me, or you could just sit on the sidelines. And most people choose to sit on the sidelines. It's a sort of getting up and doing it every single day. So, I think that this is an incredible thing to realize, that in order for you to realize some of this potential, and if you wanted to become a billionaire, PhD, is, yeah, you do learn things, and some of the stuff is actually pretty basic, but people discount it, right? Because they don't understand it. And there's basic rules, right? There's like really basic algebraic rules where that just exist, that, compound interest, for example, but people discount that so much, and, they fight tooth and nail to not believe something. And in a reality, it's actually harming them. So I think knowing what to believe, who to believe, what feedback, I think all of those are really incredibly important things, where, you really need to take a step back and question yourself. So a big part of the whole process, I think, is it's not only the selection and signaling and those particular things, but there's a molding that happens where you increasingly, mold to the environment. You understand the environment a little bit more, right? You can clearly see the environment a little better because you're molding to it, but also that ability to detach. So it's like you're getting pulled in two different directions, right? Like you're conforming, right? The whole process is very, very conforming, and it's surprisingly conforming. But then at the time, so the combination is realizing, where is it that you don't want to conform? What is it that's critically important, that is going to help you out in the long run? And so a rule that was told me, and I think this was told by their advisor, is everything that you propose, 80% of it should be the same, and then 20% is something new and different and novel. And I think if you get that right combination all the time, and in fact, actually, if you look at learning, there's a basic formula. Duolingo does this, like 80%, 20%. So 80% is, you're supposed to get 80% of the things that you do correct, in order to learn the most, and then 20% non-correct, and then you repeatedly do that time and time again. Right, so that basic formula plays out, and knowing that you're sort of getting that sweet spot, what that actually looks like, where you're both a conformist and not a conformist, is incredibly important skill that takes a lot of time, a lot of work, and some people just don't get it. But I think you get exposed to it a little bit more when you're doing something like creating novel research, or being pushed on a regular basis. So I think it's cool, and congrats to all those folks that have become a billionaire. It's not easy to do that. There is a lot of work to get there, and a lot of torturous work to get there. It's not something that's just handed to you. But all right, take care and have a wonderful day.